readers for you this evening. They have books, which are over on the table, right over there, books for sale. I encourage you to check those out. We've got snacks in the back, so if you didn't get any snacks, please help yourselves. And I'm going to go ahead and just get us started. Meg, you're up first. Meg Gardiner is an Edgar-winning novelist who writes internationally best-selling thrillers that have been translated into more than 20 languages. Publishers Weekly calls Into the Black Nowhere her latest book excellent, and the first novel in the series is in development as a television series by CBS. Gardiner previously practiced law in Los Angeles and taught in the writing program at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Beyond writing, she is a 3-time Jeopardy champion and a citizen of the Chickasaw Nation. She lives in Austin. Welcome, Meg. Hello, thank you for coming out here on this lovely, cool evening. August in Central Texas. You've lured Joe here to our fine, scorching, wonderful homeland. So I've lived in Austin now for about 5 years, so I consider myself a local writer. Most of my books, this is the book I'm going to read from tonight, my latest is my 14th. Most of my other novels are set in California, which is where I grew up, lived, spent a lot of my life. But after moving to Austin, I decided, how can you possibly overlook the state of Texas as a setting for a thriller? So this series, the UNSUB series, is about a young FBI agent, Caitlin Hendricks, who is essentially a rookie. She is working on the behavioral analysis unit, which chases serial predators. And as we start the book, she's at home asleep in Quantico, Virginia, but it opens on the opposite of tonight. The cry pierced the walls, ringing through the darkness. Sheena Kerber roused and squinted at the clock. 12:45 a.m. Her voice came as a sigh. Already? Sheena huddled for a minute under the comforter, clinging wishfully to warmth and sleep. Hush yourself, J.D., please. But the baby's crying intensified. It was her strong, wide-awake, I'm hungry cry. The night was bitter. Early February, the north wind scouring Texas. It whistled through the cracks in the farmhouse, rattling the doors in their frames. Sheena rolled over. The other side of the bed was cool. Brandon wasn't home yet. For a few more seconds, Sheena lay still, aching with fatigue, hoping J.D. would quiet. But she was crying to beat the band. 10 months old and still up twice a night. Sheena's mom swore things would get easier. She'd been swearing so for months. When, Mom? When? Please. Come it, baby, Sheena murmured. She tossed back the covers, brushed her sleep-tangled hair from her face, and slogged out of the bedroom. The hardwood floor creaked beneath her bare feet. J.D.'s cries grew clearer. 6 feet down the hall, she slowed. The crying wasn't coming from the nursery. The house was completely dark. J.D. was too little to climb out of the crib. Sheena turned on the hall light. The nursery door was open. A sliver of ice seemed to slide through her chest. At the far end of the hall, she could see into the living room. On the sofa, half lit by the hall light, a stranger sat holding her little girl on his lap. The icy slipper sank through Sheena. What are you doing here? Don't worry. I'm a friend of your husband. The man's face was in shadow. His voice was soothing, almost warm. She was crying, didn't want to wake you. He seemed completely relaxed. Sheena walked slowly to the living room. She glanced out the front window. The moon was full. An SUV was parked outside. A placard hung from the rearview mirror. Is that? She looked him up and down. Army? Are you? The baby twisted in the man's arms. He bounced her. She's quite a little doll. He tickled J.D. and made baby talk. Sheena tried harder to see his face. His eyes remained in shadow. Something stopped her from turning on the table lamp. Is he a friend of Brandon's? Sheena extended her hands. I'll take her. The wind battered the windows. The man's smile persisted. Though she couldn't see his eyes, Sheena had a gut certainty that he was watching her. She edged forward. She was 8 feet from him, out of his reach. Give J.D. to me. He didn't. Her hands were open. Please, JD twisted in the man's arms. Her chubby legs pumped like pistons. Shayna's heart thundered. She saw the power in the man's hands and knew she couldn't simply charge at it. The shotgun was under her bed. 5 seconds was what it would take to run to the bedroom, grab it, and rush back down the hall. It was a 12 gauge. It was loaded. And it was useless, because this man was holding her child to his chest. Her breathing caught like cloth snagging on a nail. She inched forward. Give her here. For a few seconds, he continued bouncing JD. Crying, the little girl reached starfish fingers towards Shayna. She wants her mama, the man said. Aw, come here. Shayna held still, her own arms outstretched. Give me my baby. The smile stiffened. The man set JD gently beside him on the sofa. Before Shayna could inhale, he lowered his shoulders, gathering himself. He was in motion when the light finally hit his eyes. The dashboard clock read 1:30 a.m. when Brandon Kerber turned onto the gravel driveway. The truck bounced over the ruts, stereo blasting Chris Stapleton. Brandon whistled along. His rare Saturday night out had been golden. A Spurs game in San Antonio with friends from his Army days. He curved around past the stand of cedars, and the house came into view. What? The front door was open. Brandon gunned the F-150 up to the house. The windows reflected the truck's headlights like wild eyes. He jumped out. In the wind, the door was banging back against the wall. An acid taste burned his throat. Banging that loud should have woken Shayna up. Inside the darkened house, he heard a mournful sound. Crying. Brandon rushed in. The living room was cold. The headlights threw his shadow ahead of him on the floor like a blade. The crying kept up. It was the baby. JD lay huddled on the floor. He scooped her up. Shayna! He hit a light switch. The living room lit up, neat, clean, and empty. JD's eyes were red-rimmed. She was exhausted from sobbing. He pulled her to his chest. Her cries diminished, pathetic hiccups. Shayna! Brandon ran to the bedroom with the baby and flipped on the light. He spun and strode down the hall, looking in the nursery, in the kitchen, the garage, the back porch. Nothing. Shayna was gone. He stood in the living room, clutching JD, telling himself, she's here. I just can't see her. But the truth closed in on him. Shayna had vanished. She was a fifth. And it turns into a cat and mouse game between the stranger here who has taken a number of people from the Austin area and my heroine, Caitlin Hendricks, who ends up being assigned to hunt him down. So much of it takes place in Austin and across the Southwest up to